They arrived at the park at 11 o'clock on December 31st. The warden was the first to arrive, appearing near the gate a moment before an old battered truck pulled into the parking lot. Grandpa and his entourage got out, John having ridden with them, and as they approached the warden, Dr. Winters and Maggie walked from the street side and came around the wall of the botanical garden. They all came face to face more or less at the same time, and there was a strange sense of déjà vu as they stood in the place they had done battle a year ago. This must have been how Civil War veterans would have felt if they had visited Gettysburg, and many of them could identify the locations of skirmishes. There was still a stain here, a dent there where a foe had fallen or wounds had been taken, and a hush resided over them as they took it all in. "Never would have thought of all of us coming back here again," Marcus said, "especially not on New Year's." "That's for sure," Dr. Winters said, turning as the gates creaked open. Tobias, Sam, and Randy had left their togas off today, and all were sporting armor of some sort or another. Sam and Randy had opted for Kevlar, their hair poking out of the vests and their cuffs of the BDU pants they wore. But Tobias had put on something that made him look like a Roman centurion. The breastplate appeared to be beaten copper, the skirt that went with it was armored with bits of ornament, and his hooves were bare to the night. Randy had his cudgel, his sign of office, and Sam had one to go along with the riot guns that they wore over their shoulders. Tobias had a short sword on his hip and a small knife opposite it. "Come on, then," Randy said, motioning with a gloved hand. "She's expecting you." The garden grounds were quiet, the small lights casting pools of illumination amongst the gloom. The wind pushed garbage around, scuttling it eerily across the pavement, and no one in attendance seemed immune to the feeling of apprehension that moved through them. This place might soon be another battleground, and none of them were in any hurry to see it. The trees from the Christmas lighting stood tall and foreboding, and as they came to the lily pond, they saw that a table had been set up. It was oddly fragile-looking, spindle-legged and thin, and upon it sat a pair of silver pins, and not much else. The lady was standing behind it, looking at it the way most people look at poisonous insects. "Good. You've all arrived. Thank you again for coming. He should be here soon, so take up positions nearby, just in case. Dr. Winters, you and the warden are capable of glamour, so I would like you close by and unseen. Can you do that?" As if in answer, Dr. Winter was suddenly gone. "Like this?" she asked, and Maggie couldn't seem to find her. "Perfect. Magus, you and your friend with the sight move towards the 11 o'clock position and hide. Your apprentice and his companion should go towards the 1 o'clock position and do the same. Marguerite, there is a ledge above the lily pond that I would like you to take a position on. It would be an easy leap to the table if something went wrong. Randy, you and Sam go to the gate and see if he's arrived yet. Tobias, stay with me. Are we all clear on what to do if something happens?" "The same thing we did last year, I assume," Grandpa said, and the lady nodded. "Good. Get in your positions and be ready for anything. I do not believe for a moment that he intends to play fair." "Before we depart," the warden said, "I need to speak with you on it," but the lady raised a hand. "There'll be time for that later. The hour is drawing close, and we have to be ready." As if to accentuate this, the snow around them began to flurry, and a low sort of ground fog began to rise. They all departed for their assigned places, the warden disappearing with a grimace. The lady steeled herself, feeling the apprehension take root again. If he was serious, then she owed it to herself and her people to be open to the idea. He had never suggested anything like this before, and it made her uneasy. The Green Man did not surrender, he did not negotiate, and he certainly did not speak of peace. This had to be something, a trick, some sort of plan of attack, but she couldn't see how. As the mist swirled around her, she heard his footsteps before she saw him. The clump of metal on stone was all the warning she needed, and when he came into view, the moonlight playing off his mossy armor, she was again aware of how big he was. He was closer to 7 feet than 6, and even unarmed he looked formidable. Randy and Sam were not small, but they seemed like children. They had their cudgels out, herding him like a cow to the chute, and when he saw her there, he seemed to grin. "My lady," he purred, coming towards her as her brandy-low followed close behind. Someone coughed not far off, and she hoped he wouldn't notice. "I trust I haven't kept you waiting long," he said as he swaggered over to the table. "Long enough. But then she noticed that he wasn't alone. In his wake came a smaller figure, more normal in stature. He walked like an imp, coming along behind some great demon, but he didn't seem overly thrilled to be here. The suit he had worn had likely once been very nice, but it was dirty and torn now, and his top hat looked more like a discarded soup can. His eyes darted around, unsure, untrusting, and the lady wasn't quite sure what to make of him. "I believe your terms were that you would come alone." The green man snorted, and it sounded odd in his helmet. "Because you most certainly have come alone, have you not?" he said, indicating the two Brandula who followed. "This is my new friend. He doesn't say much, but I do love him. He has come to witness our palaver." The lady looked at him, but the man seemed more interested in his shoes than her. The mist and the snow were coming in, even thicker than before, and the lady wanted to finish their business before he brought a blizzard in with him. "Very well, then. Let's get this over with. Present your—" But she felt her teeth come together as something slid across her senses. Something was whistling, not the usual wind through the trees keening that she was accustomed to. What is that?" she whispered, and she could tell that she wasn't the only one that it bothered. Sam and Randy were wincing as they came behind him, staggering a little as the whistling warped around them. It was sharp, like the biting of a winter wind, and she could feel it like an ice pick in her brain. "Stop that," she half-whispered, swaying a little. "Stop what? What is it that troubles you, my lady?" the green man asked. She was shaking. Something wasn't right. She was under attack. It was happening right now, and there was nothing that she could do to stop it. The trees were rustling around her. The pines were whispering dark, cold words. And beneath it all was something stranger than the keening of this new enemy. It sounded like the whisper of a cornfield. The lady tried to set her defenses against the incursion, but it had come too quickly. Whenever she tried to raise some sort of alarm, to raise a shield or a mental barrier, that damn whistling would snap across her and make her lose the course of her thoughts. She reached for a sword and remembered that she had come unarmed as well. They had been here for peace talks, but it appeared that the trap she had suspected had been real. She shook herself, and there he was. He rose up before her like a ghost from a tomb, and when his hand came out towards her, she jittered away. She could hear the people that she had brought with her coming out of concealment, but when the green man staggered away, she could see the warden as he took on his more monstrous aspect. His sister wasn't far behind, her humanity a little harder to shed than it seemed her brother's was. He was inches from his demonic nature, and she was always trying to lose hers. The two of them pushed the green man back, but as the lady backed into the lily pond, she could feel movement in the depths. She turned, and there, rising like a colossus of weeds and wet, was some kind of plant creature. It was amorphous, its body an amalgamation of roots and stalks, and that form was opening up as if to swallow her whole. When it ran into a glowing dome of energy that had sprung up between her and it, the creature seemed confused. McGhee came howling down onto the corn creature, sending it teetering into the water with a splash. The feral vixen was on it now, tearing great chunks from it with her bare hands, but those tendrils and roots took their own toll on her as well. They tore at her, cutting lines across her alabaster skin, but for every cut and every abrasion, she dealt them a wound in kind. She gripped at the vines and the roots and the tendrils of green, and the beast roared in agony at her touch, right up until it threw her off, and the bulk of it came to rest on top of McGhee as it shoved her beneath the pond. The lady stumbled forward, wanting to help, but it was unnecessary. With a feral screech, Glimmer hit the thing and sent it staggering away as McGhee surfaced with a loud and hungry gasp. The two fought off the creature, sending those lashing vines to float on the water. Glimmer had a pair of serrated knives, their blades dribbling chlorophyll, and as the whistling continued to assault her, the lady turned to check on her enemy. She saw the green man as he fought the demonic twins, and for a moment she believed they might push him back. The two had taken hunks out of his emerald armor, the creature struggling to keep them at bay, and his hellish eyes came to rest on her just as Pamela Winters hit him again with a long, delicate claw. He clearly had not expected her to be so well guarded, and the lady hoped for a moment that they might win out. Then she remembered the ragged man, the one who looked like a midway hawker, like a sideshow ringmaster, like some ragged Barker, and the green man remembered him too. "Now! Do it now, you fool!" The man looked unsure, unwilling, but as he closed his eyes, the lady felt something more devious than the mist and the fog crest over her. She felt it, saw it affect her friends and allies, saw them fall back as whatever it was came into play, and then saw nothing but the blackness as the creature opened its coils and enveloped her. He was standing in an old slaughterhouse, the one that had been on his uncle's property when he was a kid. The meat hooks still hung from the ceiling. The floor was still the burnt red of old blood, and even though he could see the sun through the hole in the ceiling, he felt a cold chill creep up inside of him. His cousins had told him what lived here. It was the same pig creature that had killed the old butcher when he lived here. It was the same strange combination of pig and man, and its favorite thing to eat was little boys. The piggy man would get him, but they had said that if he escaped the piggy man, then he could join their special club. He was only 9, but he really wanted to join that club, so he had agreed to this rite of initiation that they had all sworn to have done before him. As a much younger John stared at the dark depths of the back room, he could hear the snorting and the rooting of some massive pig creature as it prepared to come after him. Except, no, he didn't really see those things. It was hard to explain, but it was like looking at a particularly good illusion. He could see the dingy shack, hear the piggy man as it went about its work, smell the old leaves and the dry rot that fought for supremacy with the scent of old blood, taste the tang of fear as it tried to take hold, but he could also see through it. As the piggy man came out of the dark back room, something that he remembered hadn't happened in real life, he found that he could see through him too. It charged him, cleaver raised, but it all passed right through as it swung that big blade down, and John walked through him and out of the dingy shack and into reality. John was standing beside Grandpa, the old man shaking and mumbling as he lived out his own nightmares. No, I won't jump. No, I said I won't. I won't. John had put a hand on his shoulder. Gramps, it's not real. Snap out of it. I don't want to. I'll die. I won't jump. I won't. You can't. Gramps, he said, shaking him a little harder. The old man's eyes came open, slowly, and he looked around like someone coming out of a dream. John, what the hell happened? I don't know, but we need to find the others. They moved slowly through the mist, not sure what to expect, and John realized that the whistling had ceased. Thank God, that had been horrible. Whatever it was, it had gotten into his head and done a number on him. He hoped they wouldn't find what had made that whistling sound as they went through the thick mist, and he saw Grandpa reach out a wrinkled hand and push it away. John could see the pond ahead, but there were shapes around it, slowly writhing, and they made a beeline for them. They came across Dr. Winters and the warden first, but it was the thrashing of the water that caught John's attention. Glimmer and Maggie were in the lily pond, fighting to keep their heads above the water as they were assaulted by whatever nightmare held them. Glimmer seemed to be doing okay, but Maggie was thrashing and coughing like she couldn't catch her breath. I'll help them, John said to Gramps. You see if you can help these two get back on their feet. Gramps nodded as John ran to the water and tried to pull Maggie out. Glimmer was starting to get a handle on whatever it was she was seeing, and when Maggie's hand latched around John's wrist, he jumped like he'd been struck. He looked down into her inhuman eyes, her too pale skin, and suddenly felt like he might be back in the dream again. He was floaty, feeling off-kilter, and when she reached up to stroke his cheek, it felt really good. Come, darling. Let me have a taste. Her mouth opened, and John was suddenly staring into a maw of sharp teeth with a lashing tongue in its midst. He realized the trap, but his mind was slow to come back from it. He was pulling back, trying to get loose, but he was like a child pulling against a parent. He was losing the fight, getting yanked closer to that gaping mouth and those two deep eyes, and when he slipped and fell into the water, he could feel her tower over him. Don't fight this, darling. I won't take much. Her hands opened like a trap suddenly, and John shook his head as Glimmer clamped onto the creature and pulled her back. She had her arm in its mouth, her muscles standing out as she pulled it back, and John was splashing out of the pond as he came back to the shore. Glimmer was thrashing and splashing, trying to keep Maggie's teeth out of her arm, and Maggie was screeching as she reached for John while he got as far away as he could. Someone stepped past him, making him jump, and as Dr. Winters entered the water, the vampire turned her full attention on her. Her inhuman face sagged a little, seeming to understand that she was being seen for what she really was. Her hands were still reaching for John, though the movement was less coordinated. Winter bent down and took those hands, murmuring to Glimmer to let her go, and as she came free, the two embraced in the water. Pam, the vampire said, half crying, but Winter soothed her as she stroked her wet hair. I am so sorry. Shh, it's okay. No harm done. It's over now. You're safe. The two embraced as Glimmer went to go find Marcus, and John tried to get his heartbeat back under control. It's been so long since I had a dream like that. I did not miss it. John turned to see the warden rubbing his head as he sat up, his pinstripe suit distinctly ruffled. Glimmer came back with Marcus, a bruise on the side of his face, making John think he had fallen onto it, and the brandy-low came on as they got to their feet as well. Everyone was looking around like they weren't sure what to make of it all. They started looking for damages and things that were missing, and as Winter and Maggie came out of the pond, Sam finally found what was gone. Where is she? He asked, his voice sounding suddenly scared. Who? Marcus asked, coughing as he leaned against his fiancée. The lady, she's gone. They found him not far from the pond, but of the lady, there was no sign. She was gone, but Randy and Sam dragged the man in the shabby suit to the guard shack so they could interrogate him. Grandpa and Marcus came along too, wanting to help, but the doctor and the warden stayed outside, Maggie not feeling capable of being around flesh and blood people yet. John probably wasn't helping by sitting out there, having a smoke that he had stolen off of Randy, and Glimmer was keeping an eye on him as she glowered at the vampiress. The Barker sat slumped in the hot seat, looking down as he endured their anger. I'm getting pretty tired of asking, so I suggest you come out with it. Where's the lady? The Barker shook his head. I don't know. He put his hands up immediately to stop the coming cries of bullshit. I wasn't told where we were going, only that he needed my abilities. If I helped him, he said he would free me again, so I could roam. I didn't know where we were going or what we were doing, I swear. Randy looked over at Sam, but the Brandylo just shrugged. Where do you think he took her? Sam asked. Somewhere cold, the Barker said. I do know why he took her, though. Why? Randy asked, leaning close. The Barker looked up, and Sam could see no lie on his face. He was clearly different than the others that he had come with, and he believed that he felt bad about what had happened. He wanted his freedom, though, and that was something they could all understand. At the end of the day, those who are indentured, even kindly so, long for freedom. Every year, the Green Man has his followers bring him back to something more corporeal. Every year, he walks the earth until spring. Every year, he is made insubstantial again. He wants what your lady has. He wants to be whole again and not suffer the whims of fate when the season is right. He has taken her so that he can get that which he desires. He wants to be alive. That shut them all up, and when Grandpa whistled, it was the first sound they had heard in some time. How will we find her? Randy asked. I may have a solution, said Tobias, as he came in from the greenhouse. He had the Gordling with him, the poor creature looking distressed and unhappy, and when he set it down, it began to turn and look for its mistress. As creepy as Sam sometimes found it, he had to admit that the sight of it like that made him a little sad. What? You want him to sniff her out? I do. He has a spark of the lady's power in him, a fairly recent spark at that. Also, I think he would like to help. He's been inconsolable for the last hour. Well, he can come with me then, Randy said, 'cause I'm going to find her. Sam and Tobias objected. Randy, you can't just go off like this. God knows what's waiting for you out there. I've got to do something. She was counting on me to keep her safe, and I failed. Now it's up to me to get her back. Then I'm coming too, Sam said, but Randy shook his head. Nope, I'm the head of security. It needs to be me. Sam, you have to keep this place secure while I'm gone, and also go speak to the Fey courts on our behalf. Tobias, you have to run this place while I'm gone. We have to keep this place going, for her sake. Also sounds like, if I don't find her before spring, I could be in a pickle. I'll come with you, said a voice, and they all turned to look at the Barker. My ass you will. This is as much your fault as his. I feel terrible about it. I want to help. I have no loyalty to the Green Man. He brought me here against my will, and if I can help you with this, I want to help get her back. Randy drew in a breath and sighed. Okay, I suppose I can't really turn down help right now, but you mind me, he said, looming over the man once again. If I so much as think you're going to betray me, I'll cave your head in and leave you in a ditch. Are we clear? The Barker nodded. You won't have to. If he discovers I'm helping you, he might do it for you, and I'm fully aware of that." They exited not long after, Dr. Winters growling when she saw the Barker. She hadn't seen him yet. She had been too busy with Maggie, but now that her girlfriend was a little less blood-crazed, she got up and approached the man. "I might have known it would be you. I should have squashed you when I had the chance." But Randy put a hand out to stop her. "He did this under duress, apparently. He has offered to help. If he can help us get her back, then I might need him. You can always squash him when we get back." Dr. Winters glowered at the Barker before scoffing and walking away. "Maggie and I are heading home. If you all need anything, you know how to contact us. Sorry about what happened. Your lady, I hope you find her." The warden took his leave not long after that. "I suppose you won't need any sacrifices for a while," he said. And when Tobias nodded, the old devil added, "I'll continue to send details down here to help clean up. It looks good on our taxes and such." Then he was away too, one of his problems seemingly having fixed itself, for now. "You know how to reach us too," Marcus said, offering them a hand. "If you need help, we'll be here." "Yes," Grandpa added. "Count on it," John said, and the group took their leave as well. So, the Kashmir Botanical Gardens started the new year without its patron, and Randy sat out in the unlikely company of the Barker and the little Gordling to find her. The others tried their best to return to a state of normalcy, while everyone else tried to forget what had happened on the worst New Year's Eve they had spent at the garden. All of them secretly hoped, as they tried to return to their lives, that it wouldn't be the last time they had reason to be there, and wished Randy good luck on his quest. The little town of Kashmir slept with its secrets that night, and those who were not privy to them slept the night through and were happier for it. You're still here. Thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague here. Always a pleasure to see all my new and old viewers coming by for another one of my spooky tales. If you'd like to support the show, you can always take part in one of our channel offers through Fume or Aura, or you can just click on another video when they come up. I'd really appreciate it. For our newer viewers, we also have lots of playlists and other things if you'd like to get caught up. I know some of my series have been going on for quite a while. If you'd like to get my latest book, there's a link down below that'll take you to my Amazon page. Towesey Homestead just came out, so if that's something you'd like to get your hands on, go ahead and have a look down there. If you'd like a signed copy, you can go ahead and email me from my email address on the site, and I'll get with you about shipping information and ship you a signed copy. If you'd like to support the channel in a more monetary fashion, we also have membership through YouTube, and we've got a Patreon that you can get the information for in the description. We have lots of tiers and everything to suit your needs. Patrons that support on the $10 tier, that's our Ghostly Reader tier, get a book anytime I write one, signed and on their doorstep. As you may have noticed, there's a list of patrons and members on the screen, and I'd like to personally thank every one of them for taking a hand in the future of this channel. Well, that's enough for tonight. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.